Then to apologies for absence, which is pretty obvious. Stephen Cockett has sent his apologies and hopes to be back shortly and back to normality. Are there any declarations of interest, please, for item 2? No declarations of interest. Thank you. So on to item 3. We have the minutes of the previous meeting. I trust you've all had a chance to check that they are accurate. You have something to bring up, Steve?
Yeah, only a small correction on page 16221. I have been called Potty a few times in my life, but my name is Steve Cooper, not Steve Potter.
Sorry, Steve.
That's all right.
Well spotted. Any other observations?
Chair, it's very minor. It's under 6921, time and tide project, last line. Read better if Councillor Phil brings to return to a future town council meeting, drop the A with detailed costly proposal, rather than with a detailed costly proposal.
Did you get that, Steve? Yes.
Just dropping out the A. It shifts the meaning somewhat.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Any observation? So can I have a proposal?
Sorry, I've got my hand up.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I think you might have to stamp your feet. I'm begging pardon.
I don't understand. Although I also read this one because this is the 5th time I think I've raised it on 6121A. I had a correction to the minutes of the annual council meeting at the last meeting, which I did raise with you at the meeting and subsequently by email, and twice subsequently before that by email and at the previous meeting. So the minutes weren't taken as read after correction, which I thought would be agreed.
Well, they were taken as read at the meeting, whether they should have been or not.
No, I raised the correction at the meeting.
Okay.
Having raised it 3 times agreed. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Boyd. Right, I'm now scanning to see if there are any more observations. So can I have a proposer, please, for the minutes? Councillor Watling, and seconded by Councillor Lucas. Thank you. So moving on to the planning committee meeting, these are just for information. You have that. The people that were at the planning, are you happy with those?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. We now come to number 4 on the agenda, and that's the finance report, and the town clerk, David Bartlett, will take us through the finance.
Thank you, Chairman. Balances at the 30th of June were stood at 423,563, to which total the accounts have been successfully reconciled as usual. Payments during June totaled £51,615, of which 3,340 was attributable to the Salisbury Gardens account. I've noted that the major element of the expenditure during June was the settlement of the rental payments due to the Isle of Wight Council for the car parks in the previous financial year. We obviously can't determine the amount due until all the sums have been done. They now have, and we have paid them a total of 12,657. The full list of payments in the month is attached as usual. Receipts during June totaled 9,006, of which 3,989 was the Salisbury Gardens rent collections during the month. The usual list of payments and receipts against preset budget lines are attached, showing that payments in the first quarter total came to 4,551, less than the budgeted amount, and receipts over the period were 1,802 below budget. And that's the report for June finances, Chair.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions or any observations, please? Can I have a proposal then, please? Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. And a seconder? Okay, thank you.
What was that?
Sorry,
Oh.
Councillor Warren.
Thank you.
So moving on to item number 5, which is, you will recognise BONIFACE LEASE. And before we ask for any observations or comments, I think Town Clerk David Bartlett would like to explain something to us.
The explanation, Chair, is in connection with paragraph 2C of the report, and that reflects an email correspondence I had with Paul Hargreaves, who is the Isle of Wight Council's senior surveyor, who's been dealing with this matter for some 2 years now. And he's expressed concern about the request for a break clause, and has indicated 2 things: that it will need to be referred back to his senior management for consideration, because he regards it, and he thinks they will regard it as a major change from the previous discussions that we've had. And there is also an indication that if we wish to proceed with that, there will be a change in the rent agreement, given the possible change it would cause to the operation of the 35-year lease. My question, Chair, if I may ask it, is do we really need this? And it would be helpful if we didn't, given that a further delay after working on this for 2.5 years now, I think enough has been done. But more significantly, perhaps, can members really envisage circumstances in which they would wish to give up the 25 allotments that are flowering so well in the lower field? This is obviously a member decision, which is why it's listed here. My recommendation would be that we don't pursue the request for a break clause, but that's entirely up to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Town Clerk. Would anyone like to speak for that?
Yeah, I would agree, because I think with the long-term investment we're looking at that site, and bear in mind it's a split site, it's not like we actually own the building on our revenue. I think a break clause is totally unnecessary, and it could bring us possibly something down the road, so I recommend we go ahead without a break clause. Thank you.
Anyone else would like to make a comment on that? Thank you, Councillor Lucas.
Well, I think it's a nice to have, and I think you should always build in sort of risk assessment into that situation. But I can see the argument for us being fully installed in that place, and it's not as if we are finding it difficult. It's proving more successful every year, and therefore I feel that we could do without it.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? It would appear everyone is seeming to agree. Oh,
Just a point of clarification, because historically I'm not aware of the ins and outs of this gone into this break clause. What was the point of asking for it in the first place?
I think Town Clerk could answer that, but I think it's probably more like normal procedure.
It wasn't anything special. It was just part and parcel with it.
We have included break clauses in some of the other leases we have, and it was felt by one or two members that it might be, as Councillor Lucas said, a good thing to have, but perhaps alongside other considerations, it's not that good. So
it was raised by the solicitor as an omission which he was surprised about, and that's why we picked up the request.
But there is nothing unusual that's prompted it. Chair, if the members are content with that, the recommendation as in the paper could be put to the vote.
Is everyone happy with that? The recommendation is that we go ahead without a break clause. So can someone propose that, please?
I'll propose that, please.
Councillor Toogood. And Councillor Warren. Thank you, everybody. Moving on to number 6, which is major projects update, and you do have a list of the projects on the second page of that item. So I would invite any questions that anyone has on, perhaps, let me just say, BONIFACE Fields we've probably dealt with, if no one else has anything to ask about that. Yes, certainly.
I just wondered, the second bullet point, required completion, any idea of timing when the new lease will be discussed and agreed to Ventnor shed? Linked into the development proposals.
Can I respond to that?
Yes, certainly. Thank you.
The Ventnor shed, Ventnor community shed, as I understand it, are expecting discussions to start as soon as the lease is formally signed that we have with the Isle of Wight Council. Because up to now, the building they occupy, they've held under a tenancy at will from the Isle of Wight Council, but the lease will transfer that building to the Town Council, and therefore we've been in a position to lease it, sublease it to the Ventnor community shed. And they're expecting that, and the discussions will start as soon as we can find time for it mutually.
Councillor Warren, are you happy with that?
Happy with that, and that also includes the disability access, I think, as well, which is mentioned there.
David, does that include the disability access as well?
To which one, sorry?
Councillor Warren?
Yes, just saying, as well as development proposals, that also includes disability access as well, so that will be part of the discussion.
It won't, no.
Right.
Our understanding is the cost of that, Councillor Tibble will confirm, I think, is upwards of £20,000, and that funding isn't currently available.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Town Clerk. The second item, the new public toilet, the Town Clerk has asked to speak on this matter.
Yes, very briefly, members, just to tell you that this morning, after 7 months of waiting, we now have borrowing approval for the Public Works Loan Board up to £150,000. As I think I've explained before, but maybe for the benefit of new members, that doesn't mean we have the money. We need to apply for it as and when you decide that it's time to do so. But without this borrowing approval from the government, we couldn't proceed. But we now have it, so that's done. On the other matter listed there, the Mayor and I are meeting, as you can see, with Alex Mims of the Isle of Wight Council next week. And that will include discussion with the other element that's been holding this project back, which is, as you know, the charge of £5,900 a year that the Isle of Wight Council has been proposing to charge for the use of the 4 bays that the new toilet would occupy. There has been some informal movement on that, and we're hoping to clarify that and firm it up at next week's meeting.
Thank you, Town Clerk. Does anyone wish to have any comment on car park management at all, as listed there?
Can I go into back to the public toilets?
Oh, yes, that's really good.
Yeah, sorry about that. I basically remember I put into my piece that we've now got the money for public toilets, but no problem we got in the industry for shortage of material. A simple thing like bricks you're looking at a delay of 6 months. We've got a lot of specialist material here, especially in the doors and the door mechanism. So we need to be working closely with the contractor to make sure a lot of these specialist material are put in order very quickly. Also, what I'd like to do, I know we haven't got money for it, if we can find the money budget, I think it's a very good place to put the defibrillator on the toilet as well, where so many people around that area. I know we've got one at the post office and we've got one in the Legion up the road, but there's a huge amount of people passing here, so I think we should seriously look at the defibrillator. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Toogood. Anyone have anything else to add to that? So the others going down, would you like me to take them individually, or is there anyone would like to make any comment or add anything to? Yes, Councillor Cooper.
Yeah, just on the Ventnor Haven, under required for completion, there's a feasibility study on the seaweed control is underway. 2 questions really. Have we got a date for the completion of the feasibility study, and have we got a plan B, some contingency plan if the feasibility study is negative?
Can I respond to that?
Yes, certainly, Town Clerk. Thank you.
Councillor, the answer to the first question is that the project is due to complete a first phase of the feasibility study, if nothing more than that, by the end of August. And the answer to your second question, there is at present no plan B. And amongst the people most involved with this, which is obviously us and the 2 businesses who are based in Haven, not very much hope for a feasibility study providing an answer. But we shall wait and see.
Okay.
It's on the agenda for the meeting with Alex Minns next week. And because of the urgency of the matter, of course, the current agreement with Sean Stebbins runs out at the end of March next year.
Thank you, Town Clerk. So I think you can see that if you look at the next steps, possibly at the next meeting, after this quite important meeting with Alex Minns, Town Clerk should be able to report back positive things, we hope. We hope, yes. So can I have someone to please propose that? Thank you, Councillor Cooper.
It doesn't need a motion, Chair.
Oh, it doesn't. Sorry. I had a decision on that. Right, so moving on to number 7, back to car parking and the community right to challenge the car parks. So this has been ongoing for a little while. Perhaps the Town Clerk would like to tell us where we're at.
Yes, this will need to wait for a further meeting. I had asked for the advice to be available. It actually arrived half an hour ago and it's 6 pages, and I'm not going to try to interpret that for you in those circumstances, except to say that it makes it clear that the Isle of Wight Council have not provided reasons for the refusal that sit within the current regulations accompanying the Localism Act, and is therefore open to question and challenge. The recommendation from them, Anthony Collins solicitors that is that we pursue that through discussions, starting with reminding the Isle of Wight Council that what they've done is open to challenge because it's not compliant with regulations, and endeavouring to find a solution as we did in 2015, which suits both parties without recourse to judicial review. But I will circulate, obviously, the advice that I've received, but it was literally 6:15 when we arrived, and I'm not prepared to go further than that. Councillor Bond, do you have a comment?
Yeah, just a question. When the Isle of Wight Council replied to us, did they give any reason?
Yeah, well, they put words on paper, yes. And
the reason was?
Which I can't, again, I will circulate the full documentation, obviously.
The risk we've got, it seems to me, is that we have repeated the last time we ran out of time discussing it with the Isle of Wight Council. It's in their interest to play it slow, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, as I'm sure you probably know, Councillor, there are 10 very clearly identified reasons for refusal. And Anthony Collins' assumption, and it is an assumption, is that what they've said is meant to apply to Regulation 10, which is the risk that by putting the car parks out to procurement, as they would need to do if they accepted the expression of interest, might break another statutory duty. But that's not what they actually say, which is why Anthony Collins' advice is that they haven't given reasons that are compliant. But this needs time to absorb.
Yeah, they have to have a reason why these 4 car parks are different from the other 4, and that's going to be the most challenging thing. That's the problem they have.
They do.
We are in quite a strong position because obviously any argument they could advance in relation to the additional 4, you ask the question, well, why didn't it apply to the first one? So we're sitting quite nicely, except for the lack of time, it seems to be, and the lack of will to take a big risk if it comes to it.
But there isn't a time constraint on challenging the decision unless there isn't a time constraint on judicial review. Anthony Collins, from my reading of what they've said today, is that they're advising against that because it's time consuming and could be expensive, which was the advice we got in 2015. It's no different. But as I say, I will circulate the material tomorrow. I've been very interested in any comments or advice that comes to mind, and we'll consider what to do next.
So just to clarify this one, the report is to ask members to agree the Town Council's next stage in progressing its expression of interest in taking on the management of all 8 of the town's car parks. Does someone want to propose that?
No,
you don't need to propose that. You don't need it.
No, you can't. Because you haven't seen the advice.
I beg your pardon, I have not got that marked as not needing that.
It might be worth, when you've seen it, depending on how members react to it, to convene a special meeting to consider it.
Not somebody who wants to deal under the power delegate that we would delegate to you now. That would be the alternative.
Yes. Well, that's possible, yes.
So, if you're happy, we'll be moving on. The next item is...
Well, we have a choice between the 2 options.
Oh, I'm sorry, you are...
We have a choice between the 2 routes to town clerk as well. One is to read the advice of the special meeting, the other is to delegate power to the clerk to deal with it.
Does anyone have any feelings? I mean,
I propose that we delegate that to the clerk.
So in consultation with members.
Yeah.
So would you like to propose?
Yes, I'd like to propose that.
So we're delegating that's the wording of what we're actually delegating, what specifically we're delegating to you. Recommendation on the next steps in the light of the advice, is it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'm happy to second it.
Thank you, Councillor Bond. So the next item 8 is for information only. This is the Business Development Officer post. As you know, the office is working short-staffed at the moment, and this is the details here of the vacancy that there is, with the dates of the deadline for applications and the day for interviews. Merely for information. Thank you. Next we come to the Welcome Back Fund. I think the Town Clerk would probably like to just confirm the amounts here and what's happening with the fund.
Yes, thank you, Chair. We've been waiting for this for a long time. As I said in the report, members before who were here before the May 6th elections will remember that the Town Council, along with all town and parish councils on the island, were invited to present proposals for the use of this fund, which we duly did. A list of, I think, 6 items altogether, and that was back in April. Nothing has happened since, except that the guidance on the use of the fund came out after town and parish councils were invited to say what they'd like to do. And the majority of the propositions that had gone from this town council didn't fit the guidance. So we have now been told, as of the 29th of June, that 2 of our proposals do fit the guidance, specifically an additional new bench in Spring Hill Garden and commissioned street theatre from Ventnor Fringe during its festival period. So, as the report indicates, the proposal that's coming your way is that I respond on your behalf to the Isle of Wight Council and say we're grateful for the 5,000 and we would like to use 1,000 of it to produce and install the new bench in Spring Hill Gardens and use the remaining £4,000 on the Fringes Street Theatre. Both the Deputy Mayor and I have had discussions with Jack Whitewood of the Fringe, who are not only very excited about the prospect of street theatre, but also indicated a very exciting programme for it, I think, true to say, that will use up the £4,000. I don't quite know where it goes from here, because if you note my piece in the italics, the quotation from the email from the Isle of Wight Council, they're not going to give us the money, but they're somehow going to arrange for it to be spent in the way that we've asked for. And we have to submit our response by the 16th of July, but subject to your agreement, I will of course do it tomorrow. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Town Clerk. Just to perhaps expand a little bit on that, the proposal is that whilst the Fringe always has to break even financially and pay for the acts, and they charge people to go to their events, this will allow the whole town to enjoy free entertainment. It will be throughout the town and down to the seafront. So some of it will be on what we know as the pumping station apron. Some will be, they call it the Rene Theatre. That is just the shelter halfway up the cascade. Just a wonderful name for it. and in Spring Hill Gardens, and also at the church, St Catherine's Church on the corner there. So it will be spread throughout the town, and there will be jugglers, there will be stilt walkers. I'm not sure if Island Roads know about that, whether or not the roads will be good enough for stilt walkers, but hey ho. And so it's going to be quite lively from what I can gather, and these will be free, which of course should entice people to want to go to the actual bigger events. And a lot of the people, there is a circus in the main event in the park, and a lot of those acts will be offering the free to the public acts, which this fund will cover. So I think it's very exciting, and it could be a wonderful week. Anyone think? Yeah. Yes, so everyone's happy about that. There is a lot of planning to still do, of course.
It would just be good for me to have a proposal and second, Chair, if you could.
Okay, so
Recommendations of the.
so Councillor Tudor and Councillor Bond. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next item, item number 10, the purpose is to ask members to establish a working group on climate and biodiversity as proposed by Councillor Julie Hutchinson. So, Councillor Hutchinson, would you like to say something about it, even though we have some details here? Would you like to expand on it for us, please?
Yes. Can everyone hear me? Yeah. Yes. Okay. So the reason why I've done this is it's with regards to increasing. Sorry, I've had a bit of brain fart there. Increasing gases, greenhouse gases, and actually helping our community to lower carbon footprints and establishing groups and things like that. So the things that this working group will be discussing will be things like the effects of crop harvests with worsening weather conditions and invasive species migrating, droughts, heat waves, forest fires, flooding, strong storms, and how really we can start building a more resilient community in the face of climate emergency. I've just put that areas of consideration can include preserving and protecting insects and wildlife through natural habitats, growing and preserving foods, travel and localising more services, heating and insulation to conserve energy, water conservation, the effects of mental health and anxiety, circular economics and donut economics, so that's reusing what we have already, and planting more trees and all sorts of things like that. I feel it would be really good to link up with other town and parish councils around the island to share best practice. It would be great if other town and parish councils were to do something similar. And also inspiring a culture of change within residents to change our ways. So what I'm proposing is to establish that working group. There's nothing else to say.
Thank you, Councillor Hutchins. Councillor Hooper?
Well, all I want to say is I was really pleased when I saw this on the agenda. The whole reason for me wanting to get involved as a councillor is to do something for the climate, so I was really very pleased when I actually seen this. I was equally more pleased when I actually read the Council in July 2019 gave a commitment to being net zero by 2030, and gives us 9 years. I believe that this is probably the most important work we have to do as a council, because the planet is absolutely in crisis, and it takes all of us to actually buy into it. But it's not an easy thing. I think definitely I support the idea of a working group. It's not an easy thing because it's many facets. We do have to educate people. We do have to change cultures. We are getting there, but we are getting there far too slowly, in my personal opinion. So, you know, I'm absolutely all in favour of this, and I think it's a great idea. And I fully endorse what you actually said about getting other parish councils involved in it. And it'd be nice to think that Ventnor could actually be a beacon to other island towns and even export that to the mainland. So I fully endorse it enthusiastically and passionately.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper.
I was equally pleased to see this on the agenda because I'm really interested in biodiversity and green issues, and in particular I know that other town and parish councils around the island do have a green towns policy, so it would be good to actually liaise with them and get this going. Yes, I'm on for it.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffries. Councillor Lucas.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I mean, the town council is in a wonderful position for leading the way, showing that it can be done on a corporate basis and then an individual basis as well. So I think, you know, it gives us a great opportunity of influencing the town and setting the standard which others should be following to meet the emergency which is facing us.
Thank you, Councillor Lucas.
A fantastic initiative, and also the key thing for me as well, endorsing everything that's been said so far, is building resilience into the community in Ventnor to adapt to change. And how do we provide for people, as we're well aware, within Ventnor who are so challenged economically in the area of severe deprivation, will be feeling any severe changes very hard, essentially. So brilliant, and also linking with other communities around the island.
Thank you, Councillor Warren. So it looks as though we are first of all have to agree, are we wanting to make this group to work on this biodiversity? So it looks as though we're in agreement. I'll ask first of all who would be interested in being on that group. Oh, okay. The recommendation was 5, but shall we put all the names down, Town Clerk?
Yes, please.
So starting with Councillor Cooper.
Just give me a sec, sorry.
That's all right.
Lost my.
You must get this right.
Sorry,
Okay, what Town Clerk is really jigging. Just to say that our Mayor Stephen Pocket asked me to put him forward to go on this committee. However, he has said, and he believes this is a good way of working with other committees as well, that he's very happy to put his thoughts in writing and keep in touch that way. So he said if the numbers were low, he wanted to go on it, but if the numbers were high, he's very happy to do his via email. So we've got Councillor Cooper, Councillor Jeffries, Councillor Jeffries, Councillor Hutchinson, yes, Councillor Lucas, yes, Councillor Watling, and Councillor Warren. Constable, I think, and of course Councillor Pocket.
that makes 7.
Yes, but he did say that if it was more than 5, he would set aside. So that's looking excellent. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jude.
Proposal for second, please.
Yes, can we have a vote? Yes. Well, thank you, and Councillor Jeffries. Thank you. Item number 11 is another exciting event. This is a proposal from Councillor Bond to begin the development of a new town council website, which I hope will be user-friendly. So perhaps, Councillor Bond, would you like to introduce it?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The report makes the case for having a new website, which I think comes down to 3 main reasons. One is that our current website doesn't meet the accessibility requirement, which is a legal matter. Number two is that our current website has significant weaknesses, particularly you can't search for anything. There's also a lot of out-of-date information on it. And then three, I think more positively, the new website offers the council quite a lot of opportunity to communicate better with our residents and to involve people in the work of the council, and also to support any decisions we might take on how we brand and present the council, and also help advertise the town as a place to visit, live and work. And then the paper I put together scopes, got quite high level scopes, the work that will be involved to produce a new website. And the recommendation is that the easiest and cheapest way of going about it would be to team up with one of a number of suppliers that deal with websites for parish councils, so that we don't have to design something from scratch. And you'll see attached to the report at the back are three examples which I just thought were particularly interesting examples poking around on the internet. So you've got some written throwaway that's been out through Town Council as the first one. Hartley Whitley Parish Council is the second one, and then Didcot Town Council is the third one. And if members are interested, if we can find the three of those on the internet and see and have a look and poke around and see how the websites work. Because if we did go down this path, the website we chose, depending on the supplier we work with, would obviously look pretty similar to one of these existing websites, or indeed if we go for any additional suppliers, then I lost my train of thought. One of the jobs we need to do is to identify a supplier, and I know the town clerk has an additional supplier to suggest. The proposal is that we have a working group of members just to look at this question in the first instance. The job itself isn't a huge job. It'll probably take a few months of work, and it's probably cost £5,000 or £6,000. That's a high level scoping that I've done. It would also the cost would actually depend on the amount the quotes and proposals we get from suppliers. The main constraint, I think, would be our own staff time, because there's quite a lot of work involved in going through the existing website, identifying what we want to keep, what we want to get rid of, and then rewriting material for the new website. And because we have a staff vacancy, the vacancy that we discussed at item 8 on today's agenda, and that's going to take a couple of months to fill. The recommendation is that we do the work in the autumn. So the actual work of developing the website will be done in the autumn, assuming members are happy to go ahead. And then we would launch the website hopefully in January, or as soon as possible thereafter. That's the proposal. Because it's my report, not the officer's report, the actual recommendations is that we agree today in principle, but take decisions around budget and suppliers at the next meeting, which will give David a chance to advise us as is both his right and our obligation. So we're not taking a decision today to go ahead except in principle. I think it would be sensible if members are interested in going down this path, for a group of small group of members, probably 3 members, working with the town clerk, to identify a short list of potential suppliers so that we can hit the ground running at the next meeting, at least know who we're going to write and ask for a proposal from. And then obviously I think I would hope the proposals will come in time for the meeting after that.
Councillor Bond, could I just ask you please, you said that there are people that supply councils. Are you duty bound to go someone that just does parish councils, or can you go into the open market?
We could go into the open market if the website was designed completely from scratch by somebody with the skills, but starting from a completely blank site, that would probably cost 3 or 4 times.
So you're going to go like Squarespace?
Well, we could spend 20,000–30,000 on designing a website for Ventnor Council. We could specify our own requirements, and someone could design it for us, but obviously the cost of doing it that way would be much higher because it's been designed from scratch. The other issue is if the legal requirements around, for example, accessibility change, and there are particular requirements we have as a government body or a local government body, then obviously we would need that website updated. And one of the advantages of teaming up with the existing supplier is that obviously they are going to update the website for all of their councils, and therefore the cost will be shared amongst all of the customers, whereas if we have something designed for us specifically, we would have to pay whoever we engage with. We'd have to pay to have it updated and maintained. So yeah, we can, I mean, it's something that the working group can consider. But the advantage, obviously, if you look at these just as 3 examples, I mean, they're not necessarily a recommendation, but they're 3. I thought they're 3 good examples. Is that the format already exists, and it will be largely a question of us coming up with material that fits into whichever format members preferred. And obviously, we would have, at a future meeting, we would have proposals from a number of suppliers, and they would essentially be offering us the format plus, the cost and the timescale and some optional features. I think some of the suppliers have longer list of optional features than others, so there will be some choices that we would have to make.
Thank you. Does anyone have any comment? Councillor Lucas?
Yeah, I'm really pleased that Councillor Bond is considering a standard package which has been adapted and can be supported in the long term as opposed to bespoke. I've had experience of bespoke software, which is a nightmare in terms of making any changes that you haven't thought about at the start and getting long-term adjustments. So yes, it's definitely the way to go, because there are many councils right across the country all wanting similar things, even though ours is going to be a lot better than all of them.
I'm glad you wanted that. Thank you, Councillor Lucas. Anyone else?
No. I think Councillor Bond's the right way to do it. It's obviously put a lot of work into it already, and you are good at that sort of thing. I support it 100%. And I support the way you think about it too. It's the correct way, the most cost-effective way.
And there will be some choices we can make. I mean, it's just one example. A number of the suppliers, I think at least 2 of these websites have events directories or events calendars for the town. Now, obviously, the advantage of that for the town is it offers a focal point for everything going on in Ventnor, that people can post their events, and it's a central point for doing that. And obviously, that actually brings people to the website, so it puts the council like at the centre of what's going on in the town. Obviously, the downside, apart from the cost of that as a feature, is that our staff would have to maintain it. And there are ways of making that job easier, but that's just an example of the sort of decision we have to make. So we can have extra features, but there'll be a cost and there'll be some extra work, and we need to decide at a later stage whether we're interested in those sorts of things or not. Another example might be a business directory. I think some parish councils offer a business directory for all business people in their towns. And again, that's something we might want to do, we might not want to do. There's opportunity there, but there's some work involved.
So, Councillor Bond, it seems to me that you have been pretty thorough with your investigations. So, and you're suggesting that we delay proceeding until the new position is in place.
I mean, we could start straight away, but in practice, by the time we've identified suppliers, asked for proposals and got them back, I would hope the new staff member is in post anyway. So I think we don't need, the new staff member ought to be involved from the beginning, but we ought to be able to pick a supplier in the absence of a staff member working with David's expertise and knowing what the council can and can't do. So I hope we can move forward to that stage quite quickly.
So, Town Clerk, will we agree that we just need to agree this in principle?
I mean, Councillor Bond kindly gave me the opportunity to look at this report before it came to council. I'm very happy with the recommendation in full as it stands. If Councillor Bond wishes to propose that, then you could look for a seconder and perhaps pass it.
Okay, right, so that's helpful, Clark. I don't know if we do go down the route of having a small group of members working with David to come up with 3 or 4 suppliers that we ask for proposals. I think that's the job that ought to be done in the next few weeks. So members are particularly interested, and I think the workload involved at this stage would simply be to spend an hour or so on the internet looking at these sites to see what we think of them, and then getting together the 3 or 4 of us to decide whether these suppliers are good ones or whether anyone has any alternatives. Maybe if the same members have some more work further down the line, if you want to bear that in mind before you volunteer.
So Councillor Bond, are you going to recommend that you propose that?
Yeah, I was interested in what Stephen thought. I think he was happy to go down the path of the working group. I wasn't aware that he wasn't going to be here. I've discussed it with him. That seems a sensible way to proceed to you, David.
Yeah, absolutely fine.
So Councillor Bond, you are going to proceed.
So I'm happy to propose that, and obviously.
Can I have a second, please?
I'd like to second that, please. But don't put me on the group, I know that you can just eat it off further.
Julie, you ready to go? You've been.
I'm happy to,
Yeah, you may well go on the group. Is anyone else interested? Right, brilliant. Okay.
So that's 3.
Do we have 3 people? Sorry.
Yes, Councillor Hutchinson.
That's Hutchinson, Councillor Lucas and myself, supported by you, David.
Okay.
Assuming that no one else is wanting to volunteer.
Excellent.
And now we come to the final item, which is the town clerk's report, please.
It's shorter than usual, Chair, because it's only 3 weeks between meetings, so. Retaining walls, I think you've already discovered the consequences of that in the town, so I won't tell them that. But it was useful, certainly, that the Otherwise Council briefed the Mayor and me beforehand, so that we were able to give some warning to people what to expect. Ventnor Day planning is going really well. Tony McCarthy has been organising us into fortnightly meetings. That Alison and I have gone to together with someone from the Carnival, and Jackie from the Puckingham. And as you can see, there are now over 100 stalls booked into the event. I've been to another of the Ireland MP's meetings for town and parish councils, which are really useful, and he does them very, very well. Because it keeps them non-political, so everybody's able to have their say, and he responds very fully to question and answer sessions. Recreation Open Spaces meeting, just so you know that Alison and I now have been invited to join the Isle of Wight Council's Recreation and Open Spaces Officers meeting once each month, on the last Monday of the month, and so we were there on 20th of June. Really useful session, because obviously it covers the park and beaches and the welcome back fund and grounds maintenance, so there's lots. It's really useful to exchange issues and possibilities with each other directly rather than through channels, so we welcome that. And you'll note that the last meeting included an agreement that the payment by the Town Council of the Parks Grounds maintenance costs would begin from the 1st of July rather than we had budgeted for the 1st of April. Working groups, and that's it, that's been done.
Okay, thank you, Town Clerk. So that brings us to the end of this month's meeting. Thank you very much, ladies and